Welcome back to another episode of True Crime. Let's get it. Roll the intro music.
A.K.A is back with another true crime video.
Yeah,
take it away.
Let's get it.
Okay, I'm really excited for this one because I heard about this case a few years ago off of a BuzzFeed thing. I think it's not that well known. Like I've told people about it, and they were like, "Oh, I don't know what this is." So I was like, "It's funny. It makes me laugh, but still very true crimey." So you guys get to experience it. So for starters, have you guys ever been to New Orleans?
No, but I want to go.
I want to go. I literally don't travel anywhere.
I've been there once. Yeah, no, I've been there once, and it's beautiful, but it's incredibly hot. Like it is important to know that New Orleans is like it's like a sauna in the summer. Okay, but they have a big history. I don't know if you guys know that, but New Orleans has a pretty big history. They have like cemeteries and floods, and just in general, like a bunch of like interesting stuff like this, and ghosts and spirits. So, for today's true crime episode, we're going to be talking about a serial killer that was in New Orleans in 1920, a little earlier, like 1918. And people think, "Oh, it's the 20s. What happened in the 20s? Like how much could they get away with?" A lot. People could get away with a lot. So, buckle your seatbelts, grab a Red Bull, and let's get going.
Well,
Or a snack. Or a snack. I just drank my Red Bull, so I don't have another one. But
forget food. That's what Amelia says. Forget food.
Get a Red Bull. Get a Monster. Get a Bang. You
should do a commercial. Get a Monster. Get a Red Bull. Get a Bang.
Get a Bang.
Anyway, continue.
It's just like we're laughing now, and then I'm just like yeah, and then he died. Okay. So this all starts in May of 1918. Okay, that's when the city of New Orleans was in like this frenzied panic because a serial killer dubbed the Axeman was terrorizing the locals. This went on till October of 1919. So it was a whole year, and he was never caught. So I don't know exactly like where, like there's no background of where this guy came from since, we don't know who he is. So I'm just going to start simple and easy with the very first victims. So the first victims were Joseph Maggio and his wife, Catherine, on May 23rd, 1918. Basically, they were like a small Italian family. Joseph Maggio was an Italian, he was a grocer, and he lived above their grocery store with his wife. And they were sleeping in their bed when someone broke into their house, slit their throats with a razor, and then bashed their heads in with an axe. So as if slitting their throats was not enough, he also bashed their heads in with an axe. So right after doing so, he changed out of his clothes and fled the scene. The police thought at first, hey, it was a robbery and a murder. He broke in, probably stole something, killed them, and left. But there was no stolen items. All the valuables and money were like on the counter, but nothing was stolen. It was ransacked. Like there was a bunch of stuff like thrown around as if they were looking for something, but nothing was taken, even though there's so much pricey stuff lying around. Near the couple's home, a message written in chalk read, Mrs. Joseph Maggio will sit up tonight. Just write Mrs. Tony. Investigators were like, what the hell is this? And they started looking into suspects, but came up with nothing. It was like someone just broke into their house, made this big mess, no one saw anything, and then just disappeared into thin air. No one saw him leave, no one saw him write that message, nothing. It just, poof.
Well, what did the message mean? Like,
they couldn't figure it out. They just could not figure it out. It was like confusing enough how he got into the house and stuff, because you'll see later on how they, like, the police pieced everything together of how he was breaking into the houses and stuff like that. But yeah, you'll see. A little over a month after that happened, on June 27th, 1918, Louis Bessemer, a grocer, and his mistress. Oh, he had a mistress, okay? Harriet Lowe were attacked. He was a grocer, just like Joseph Maggio, and this led people to suspect that, hey, maybe this is an organized crime. Like, what if more grocers start popping up, you know? Bessemer survived the attack, but Lowe died 7 weeks later after intense treatment. So, right off the bat, we have a survivor who knows nothing. He couldn't recall who hit him, how tall he was, anything that could lead them to a suspect. He was just like, nope, I didn't see anything. I was just hit with an axe. Don't come to me. I don't know.
How do you even survive that, being hit with an axe?
I don't know, but you'll see it's a common pattern in this. You'll see. But he was hit, I think he had like a concussion and like brain damage, I believe.
Makes sense.
He had severe brain damage. That's what he was treated for. So then nothing happened for a few months, and on August 5th, the Axeman decided to strike again. This time, it was Mrs. Edward Schneider, who was 8 months pregnant. Okay? She was pregnant. It's very sad. So she was 28 and she was lying in her bed when she saw a dark figure hover over her and then bash her face in, like repeatedly. He just hit her in the face. And I'm assuming it was with an axe because Axeman and her axe went missing. And she was just like, she couldn't do anything. Luckily, after midnight, her husband came home and discovered her body. Her scalp had been split open and her face was covered in blood. But she was lucky enough to survive the attack and give birth to a healthy baby girl 2 days later.
Dude, what?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Wait, what? Okay, the number one thing is that, like, being smashed with an axe once, you're still alive. So, like, that is excruciating pain right there.
But repeatedly.
And then surviving that,
and then giving birth.
Then giving birth 2 days later. Like, the pain wasn't enough.
As if this lady, did not have enough pain from her face. Now she's giving birth.
Dude. Like, imagine being the husband finding your wife's body. Why? But, like,
oh.
And then you're like,
yeah.
Are you okay? Goes to the hospital 2 days later. You're still in the hospital. Has a baby. And still getting treated.
Still in the hospital.
Yeah, like, literally.
Like, you know what? You know what's even worse? Like, I'm thinking about this and I'm like, like, we have pain medicine, stuff like that. They'll be fine. But this was 1920. They didn't have that privilege.
No.
They didn't have those.
Even the hospitals were, like, horrible at the time.
Yeah, they didn't have those high-tech machines that we have now. Like, poor girl,
Jeez.
So.
And, like, the fact that she had to, like, suffer and, like, through the pain of that, like, it's
and
crazy.
she lived. Like, she didn't die after childbirth. She
had a healthy baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. I mean, like, I don't know if you get hit up here with the face, would it, like, affect, like, your baby down there? I don't know.
It wouldn't, but it's still really rare to survive.
I'm, like, surprised because, like, her brain, like,
her, like, what is it? Her head had been split open, like her scalp.
Yeah.
So it's like
I thought that would, like, result in, like, her becoming brain
damage.
dead. Yeah.
She most likely had brain damage that wasn't mentioned because, like, I think that's just something that didn't have to be written down, but she most likely suffered some kind of brain damage.
Mm-hmm.
So that was on August 5th, and now we have 2 survivors. And what was that? 3 victims, 2 survivors. So 5 days later, another grocer was attacked. Joseph Romano. Okay. He lived with his 2 nieces. He was an elderly man, he was just happy to be there. The nieces awoke to the sound of some kind of commotion where their uncle was in, like, his room. And the girls entered the room to see their bloodied uncle was hit in the head. He was just laying there with, like, blood, like, coming out of his head. And they noticed that someone was fleeing the crime. They were like, oh my god, there's someone. Mm-hmm. Luckily, the grocer, Joseph, was able to get up and go to the ambulance, but he died 2 days later due to head trauma. So that's, like, he wasn't lucky enough to survive. But we did get something out of this. The two girls were able to provide a description of the killer. They said he was a dark-skinned, heavy-set man. He wore a dark suit and a slouched hat.
That is very ominous.
A
that
suit
is so ominous.
to an axe murder.
That's
like, hello.
Ominous.
That's like elegant in a way.
For real.
Like, you have to think about it. He wore a hat and a suit to a murder that he knew would get him bloodied up. Because you don't go in like thinking, I'm gonna murder someone with an axe. And then say, it's fine. You know, of course, like, in American Psycho, I don't know if you guys have watched that movie, but in American Psycho, there's a scene where Patrick Bateman is wearing like a nice suit and he hits someone with an axe, but he puts like a little raincoat over him to protect his suit. This guy didn't have a raincoat. So that leads like people to think, what was he actually wearing? Does it make sense that he was wearing a suit? Because it doesn't. It doesn't make sense why someone would wear a suit to an axe murder. So then, that's all the media had to go off of. Those two girls' description, who were already in some kind of like emotional stress from what had happened. So people were like, are these girls really valuable? Like, they just watched their uncle get murdered. So people started piecing together things about like the crime scenes. They realized that at each crime, the house was ransacked, but nothing was ever stolen. Despite there always being valuables and money in plain sight, nothing was ever touched or taken. And by touched, I mean like picked up and like bagged, and then you know what I mean. Like I don't mean just like because it was ransacked, stuff was touched, but I mean like nothing was taken out of the property. And then the killer only used the owner's axe or hatchet. He never brought his own. So he would go into like, let's say, a person's house, right? He'd go into their backyard, look for an axe, go inside, murder them, leave the axe.
I guess it was pretty common to have an axe at that time.
It was. I mean, like, I still know people who have like an axe in their garage. You know, like that's just something that some people like have.
Yeah,
just lying around.
I don't have an axe at home.
I don't have one either, but I know like my uncle who lives down south has one.
Well, thank God we don't have axes at home. Woo, we're free to go.
Yeah. We're free to go.
We're free to go. We're chilling.
So then another thing they realized, well, that was questioned. How was this person getting in? Because they were like nothing was like broken. There weren't broken windows, there wasn't a smashed door. So the panels of doors and windows was like chiseled away. And that's how like he got in. So I don't know. You guys know those like little doggy doors on the bottom of doors?
Yeah.
Those would be like chiseled as if someone like snuck through them, but that doesn't make sense because
he's a grown
imagine
man.
How he's a big man. They described him as a heavy set man.
Yeah, there's no way. Like I can't even.
But that doesn't make sense. Like why it was touched. You'll see when I start talking about the suspects why that's so stupid. You'll see. And then another thing that was pointed out by most people was that so far, most of the victims were Italian.
Yeah,
almost
that's what I've noticed. They're what are they like they're from New Orleans. Are they like immigrants or like they just regular Italian people?
I'm assuming. I mean, I don't know. They never specified where they're from, but all we know is that they're Italian.
Yeah,
maybe.
Because I would think that maybe he would target like immigrants. I don't know why. Because just something about that seems like it's very specific. But it's interesting.
Yeah, and then now like fear was really building up in the city because people were dying left and right to a guy wielding an axe. People were carrying loaded shotguns and like families wouldn't sleep at night to make sure that someone was watching over their house. And it was crazy. But suddenly, the murders stopped. Was it too hot? Was it like the frenzy? Was he panicking? No one knows. He just disappeared. And everyone was just like, "Oh, okay. Guess he's done." You know? That was crazy. Remember the Axeman? He's done. Yeah, you thought. Until March 10th, 1919. He was never heard from, but on that day, he was like, "You know what? I'm gonna make a comeback," because the panic had died down. People stopped watching their backs, people stopped carrying shotguns, stopped watching over their houses. So he had the perfect opportunity to come back. Since everyone's guard was down, he was like, no one's expecting me now. So let me pop up and show him what's up. So I'm just gonna say this victim's name was Charles, and he was an immigrant and a grocer who lived with his wife, Rosie, and his 2-year-old daughter, Mary. And they didn't live in New Orleans. They lived in Gretna, which is across the Mississippi River from New Orleans. And a neighboring grocer, so many grocers. Like, there's so many grocers
It's
in
a
this story.
Yeah, it's a
pattern.
pattern.
It's a pattern. So, a grocer was coming home late at night from where he was. It didn't say where he was coming home from, but he was passing by their house and he heard screams, so he decided to investigate. He found the family of 3 had been attacked. Rosie had woken up to seeing her husband trying to fight off a man with an axe. Her husband fell to the ground and she was holding her like 2-year-old daughter, begging for their lives. She was like, please don't, like, I have a kid, blah, blah, blah. And, like, her husband's just knocked out on the floor. There's nothing he could do. And the killer didn't care. He attacked them both. The couple was rushed to the hospital, and luckily they survived, but there wasn't luck for their daughter, who had passed. And I'm just like, that's like, you have no remorse if you can, like, kill a family of 3 like that. You know?
The fact that you killed the child, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you let the parents live on with that.
I mean, I don't think he intentionally let the parents live. He just, I mean,
Well,
they
yeah,
survived.
I think it was
probably
an
not.
accident.
But I mean, even though it was an accident that they, of course, lived, he probably either way does not care because he completed his mission. You know. Well, no,
Yeah, someone died.
after all of these crimes, though, like, is there a reason to any of them, or is it just
or was he just starting to like it?
Yeah, or was it just out of pleasure? I don't. I think it was rather to just get the attention of the Orleanians, whatever we call them, New Orleans people, and the police probably.
Yeah, I think they're called like Orleans.
I don't know what you call New Orleans people.
I think it's New Orleans.
Citizens of the.
Yeah. Anyway, he was just like trying to get attention. Yeah.
So after that attack, Rosie was like, you know what? I'm pointing fingers now. My daughter's dead. I'm pointing fingers at everyone. So she regained consciousness and she immediately was like, my neighbor, Lorlando Giordano. That was his name, by the way. I want to say that is his real name. Lorlando Giordano. I'm going to say it's Giordano because Lorlando Giordano sounds weird. So I'm assuming it's Giordano. But yeah. And his 18-year-old son, Frank.
What?
Yeah. So yeah, Lorlando and Frank. Lorlando was a 69-year-old man, and he was in way too poor of a condition to attack this family. And Frank was way too big to have fit through the panel of the back door. So it was obvious that it wasn't them, but the police were like, we have no one else to blame. You guys are coming with us. Frank was sentenced to death.
What?
And Lorlando was sentenced to a life sentence. But about a year later, Rosie was just like, I take it back. I was just bored. She literally said, yeah, I was just jealous and I was like, I want to throw hands with them. It wasn't them, I just falsely accused them. So they were like, she was the only evidence that they had against these two, so they were released from prison.
Thank God. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, nothing happened. Yeah, they survived, nothing happened. But yeah, she did just like, you know.
That is such a wow. I mean,
right?
That's like so low.
Like, how could you do that?
I mean, yeah, I understand her daughter died, but like, really, like even
to accuse a family.
Yeah,
but like, I didn't mention this. I have to burp. Hold on.
Not even to accuse a family, but that the police didn't even argue with it.
Like, yeah,
like that's messed up. Jeez.
Sorry, I'm trying to burp.
I don't know how to make. I can't make myself burp.
Press the middle of your forehead, like between your eyebrows. Like, press it really hard. I'm just kidding, you
This
look
feels so
stupid.
stupid. Okay.
I was really thinking. I was like, "There's no way that works." There's absolutely no
That's
way.
for
Yeah,
something, I'm pretty
my
sure that's
burp
for
went
something.
away. My burp went away. Anyway, so after they had died, or the daughter had died, terror started filling the streets again because he was quiet, but now he's back. This is my favorite part, and literally the whole case. Mr. Axeman, or the Axeman himself, sent a taunting letter on March 14th, 1919, to a local news station. Or a newspaper, because there were news stations, it was a newspaper. It read as follows.
Hell, March 13th, 1919. Esteemed mortal. They have never caught me, and they never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible, even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell. I am what you Orleans and your foolish police call the Axeman. When I see fit, I shall come and claim other victims. I alone know whom they shall be. I shall leave no clue except my bloody axe, besmeared with blood and brains of he whom I have sent below to keep me company. If you wish, you may tell the police to be careful not to rile me. Of course, I am a reasonable spirit. I take no offense at the way they have conducted their investigations in the past. In fact, they have been so utterly stupid as to not only amuse me, but His Satanic Majesty, Francis Joseph, etc. But tell them to beware. Let them not try to discover what I am, for it was better that they were never born than to incur the wrath of the Axeman. I don't think there is any need of such a warning, for I feel sure the police will always dodge me as they have in the past. They are wise and know how to keep away from all harm. Undoubtedly, you Orleans think of me as a most horrible murder, which I am, but I could be worse if I wanted to. If I wished, I could pay a visit to your city every night. At will, I could slay thousands of your best citizens, for I am in close relationship with the angel of death. Now, to be exact, at 12:15 earthly time, on next Tuesday night, March 19th, 1919, I am going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I am going to make a little proposition to you people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well, then so much the better for you people. One thing is certain, and that is that some of your people who do not jazz it on Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe. Well, as I am cold and crave the warmth of my native Tartarus, and it is about time I leave your earthly home, I will cease my discourse, hoping that thou wilt publish this, that it may go well with thee. I have been, am, and will be the worst spirit that ever existed, either in fact or realm of fancy. The Axeman.
Basically, to sum that all up, he was like, y'all can't catch me, no one can catch me, play jazz music or I will kill you.
That's super overconfident of him.
Yeah, he was basically saying, like, I could kill everyone if I wanted to, but I'm not because I'm a good person. Like, as you saw, he's
And he
full
likes
of himself.
jazz.
Yeah.
Like, he's basically... Yeah, no, that is why I chose this case. Because the jazz part is what gets me. Like, he's like, you know what? I could kill all of you if I want, but play me some jazz music and I'll spare you. You know, like he literally said,
Yeah,
he
jazz
calls it
it.
jazz it. He says people who do not jazz it on Tuesday night. He's like, yeah, play me jazz music. You know, so the article, like the newspaper that read it was like, oh my god, we have to publish this. So they published it, and everyone that read it was like, oh my god, I don't want to get axed. So the streets, homes, bars, pubs, anything was filled with jazz music. Like, everybody was listening, everyone was dancing, singing, like, kids were running around. And as promised, no one was killed.
Because
Not a single
everyone
person
was
died
playing
that night.
jazz.
Because there was jazz music. Like, can you imagine being in that position? Like, you're reading this, like, oh my god, I'm gonna die!
Like, oh my god,
and
what
it's
a
like, oh wait, I just
lifesaver.
played jazz music. Oh, sorry. Yeah, like, can you imagine, like, the victims reading
I
this,
just
like,
could have played jazz
are you
music and I would have
serious?
been fine.
Like,
Dude.
yeah, like, they're like, "Oh, bro, like, seriously?" So, after that, nothing happened for a few weeks. Like, there were no killings, no break-ins, nothing. But people started living in fear. Like, as last time, in August of 1918, after the killings had stopped, people were like, "Oh, we gotta keep our guard up." And then everyone let their guard down, and he killed again. So this time, people were, like, really keeping their guard up, you know? On August 10th, 1919, another grocer named Steve Boca was attacked in his bedroom as he slept. Boca awoke during the middle of the night to see a dark figure standing over him. He was hit once in the head with an axe and he passed out. He regained his consciousness, ran to his neighbor's home where he passed out again and collapsed. So, I'm not sure that he survived. I'm pretty sure he didn't.
I don't know.
Probably not.
I feel like he would have.
So, after him, on September 2nd, which was like what, a month later, a local druggist, which is like, a guy that works at a pharmacy, named William Carson, escaped the
Did he play
Axeman.
jazz?
So the Axeman was like, yeah, he was just like, "Oh my god, the Axeman!" Yeah, that's exactly what he did. But no, the intruder broke into his home wielding an axe, and he was just like, "Nah,
Oh,
nah," and
damn.
fired shots at him. Like, he had a gun, and he was like, "You have an axe? Yeah, you brought an axe to a gunfight," and just, pow. The killer was like, "Oh god." He broke the door, but he left his axe behind. And he was just like, the guy called and he was like, "Hey, yo, we got a survivor of the Axeman here." The police
You're
were just like,
kidding me. Oh my gosh.
"Cool, I guess." They were just like, "Cool, I guess," because they couldn't get anything from it. There was no blood.
But
There
the
was nothing on the
axe.
crime scene. Just a broken door.
No. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
We didn't have fingerprints,
Yeah,
and
yep.
it was the guy's axe. It was Carson's axe. So then a day later, a young girl named Sarah Lauman was attacked with an axe while she slept in her locked and shuttered home. Her neighbors came into her house after they heard some noise, and they found her suffering from a brain injury, and she was missing several teeth. So he was like, the way I interpreted this murder was he was pissed. He was like, "Okay, someone just shot at me, so I'm gonna show them what I'm capable of." And he was like, he killed her and then ripped her teeth out.
But I don't
Which
understand
is
how he
like
keeps getting
a
into these
clear
houses.
escalation. But
If it was shut and locked, dude. I mean, I just can't even think of if I really think about it, maybe I will. Maybe I'll find my answer. But right now, I'm just kind of like flabbergasted,
It's okay.
No, he sucked it in and he went
We're
through
almost
the
there.
hole.
We're almost there. Yeah, he just went. He just into the little doggy hole. Yeah. Okay. So that was on September 3rd. Almost 2 months later, on October 27th, the last attack happened. A grocer, Mike Pepitone, was slain. Pepitone had been struck in the head and he was covered in his own blood. His murder left his wife and 6 children behind.
Yeah.
So just he died. And people were like, 6 children, god damn. I'm like, sorry, but poor girl, So that was the final victim. The Axeman never struck again. No one knows where he went. Did he die? Did he disappear? Did something happen to him? No one knows. Like, that's a tricky thing about unsolved cases, that they just disappear out of thin air and you don't know what happened to them. So now we're moving on to my favorite part about this whole case, despite the let's jazz it, It's the best and funniest part of the case because nothing makes sense in it. It's the suspects. Okay? Only one of them has, clear sense, but it led to a dead end. So the first theory is that the Axeman was not one person, but multiple people. That would explain why everything was so inconsistent, why some people survived, why some people didn't. why he could be like, why he could fit through doors, why he couldn't, stuff like that. It had seemed that it could have been a group of murderers that were copycat killers. For people that don't know what a copycat killer is, it's basically when a famous serial killer like blows up, or like I mean like blows up as in gets famous, not actually kaboom, you know what I mean. Like, for example, Ted Bundy, right? Famous, everybody knows him. If someone started murdering girls now the same way he did, using his motives, his signatures, his style, they're considered a copycat killer because they're trying to copy Ted Bundy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What's kind of like,
makes sense.
The way I was thinking about it too is like, not even, the copycat is one theory, but it would be kind of crazy and cool, also really bad, if it was a group of musicians, jazz musicians. It was like a band, and they would like get together after their club night of jazz and go over which, who's got what days. So then, because the jazz music, right? You have the jazz music that one day in 1919, I don't remember which day it was. They all heard it, so they're like,
it was March.
It's a no-go,
it was in March.
It's a no-go. Because how would he get to all those houses even if they weren't playing jazz? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. He was gonna murder other people who didn't
wasn't gonna murder
jazz.
everyone. He was going to murder. Yeah, he didn't play jazz, or just like
exactly
in general, he was going to murder someone. That's what he said. So then, as you said, it could have been a group. That led to another possible theory that it was the work of the mafia. Italian grocers.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Wearing a tuxedo sounds kind of familiar, but they tried tracking down that theory, and it led to
that's kind of an odd
nothing.
Kind of an odd placement. I mean, it makes sense, but it's just like that's
it's something I feel like the mafia wouldn't do
in general.
Not even in New
they
Orleans,
do stuff
but I just
open
mean,
and
like,
erupt, and
they left the bodies.
Yeah,
they left the bodies. They didn't. Yeah, I don't think it's
not the work of a mafia.
The way a mafia would have.
Mafia is just like, I don't care.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I like, even if you find me, you can't do nothing. You know what I mean.
But the fact that they left the bodies, I think that's like one of the biggest clues. That they just left them.
Yeah. So now you guys get to choose which suspect I talk about next. The funny one, or the one that actually makes sense?
I think we gotta hear the funny one first. Takes a huge gasp.
So, Kaylee, you know how this whole episode you're like, yo, how are they getting through these doors? Every door was shut, every window was closed. How do you get in? People were like, yo.
Oh my god.
I think this is a ghost. Of
course. It's 1820, 1919.
And there is a big theory. It is a big theory that people were like, it was a shape-shifting ghost that could slide under the door and then like shape into this big monster. That's how people were like, yeah, he could fit into small spaces like the chiseled doorways, and they could just grow into this big man, But it's like,
yeah, it's logically
that is like
make
the
sense.
Craziest theory. There's no words for me. Like, there's no words for that. It's just, every time I think about it, I'm like, imagine actually believing that like these big murder, like, can you imagine being the Axeman and he's just like, fear me, I am a big man.
Don't worry about it.
And then people are like, it's just a ghost. Oh my, it's just a ghost. Like, what are they gonna do? So that's like the supernatural theory that's like stupid and funny to me. So now, like, let's get on to the realistic theory. The one that actually has, like, circumstantial evidence that's not just like, maybe. So, this is the theory that Joseph Mumfrey is the Axeman. Now, that name has never been mentioned in this case, but it relates to the very last killing of the Axeman. So, the last killing, Mike Pepitone, as I said, had a wife and 6 kids. His wife, Esther Albano, later remarried a man named Angelo Albano, right? So, after Pepitone, Mr. Pepitone, had died, she remarried another guy. On the 2nd anniversary of Esther's former husband's death, which is the victim of the Axeman, Angelo, her current husband, disappeared. Esther revealed that Mike Pepitone, prior to their marriage, had just ended a business deal with a suspicious man. This man had many, aliases, he portrayed himself with, different identities, one of which was Joseph Mumfree. Now, this is what, kind of tied it all together. In late December, in the year 1921, Joseph Mumfree confronted Esther, saying that if she didn't give him $500, he would kill her the same way he killed her husband. And then, being the badass bitch she is, she pulled out a gun and shot him.
I mean, who wouldn't?
But the only reason, this doesn't make sense is because she had two husbands. So was Joseph Mumfree referring to her first husband, Mike Pepitone, or her second one, Angelo? Because Angelo went missing. He disappeared. So, Joseph Mumfree could have been talking about either of them, and we never found out who, because she pulled out a gun and shot him.
We don't know if it's him, but we also know that he's our only suspect for this. Yeah, he's our only possible.
He's a possible suspect. Yeah. And then when she was taken in for the murder of Joseph, she tried pulling this big sob story saying, "But he was the Axeman. I saw him fleeing the scene of the crimes. I swear I saw it." But she didn't say anything after it actually happened. She just said it now, and then she pled that it was self-defense. That's why she shot him. And all the evidence that linked Joseph Mumfree to the Axeman was circumstantial, so there was nothing ever set in stone as to who it could possibly be, which is why now, almost 100 years later, no one knows who the Axeman was. And
I feel like even if we revisited this, we still couldn't figure it out. Exactly, there's nothing there.
No, there's no evidence. Nothing.
I'm still wondering how he got into the houses.
For real. Dude, I feel like it's the
You'll
windows.
Never know.
I was thinking, but it's a stupid idea. What if it was a kid? Not a kid, like a
smaller individual. They said he was a big figure, so I don't think it could be. So that's why I think he would get into the windows.
I mean, we got that description from traumatized nieces, right? So I don't know, maybe they just saw a random guy fleeing the scene. I don't know, maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was him. I don't know.
I mean, my take on it is I don't know. Honestly, that's my take. I don't know how he got into the houses. Because the supernatural one just does not make sense. But there is literally no way that someone could have gotten into the houses.
No,
unless people were leaving their doors locked. But that doesn't make sense either.
Shut everything in her house, and he still came in.
Yeah,
unless
yeah. What I was thinking. Okay, so this takes me okay, I have two theories, my own. One is that, you know how I said that the some of the doors had little doggy ones where the dog would run in? My theory, because he was a big man, right? You'd assume that he was also a tall man. He'd have long arms, right? One of my theories was that he was putting his arm in, reaching up, unlocking it, and then walking in. That was one of the theories I came up with. Now the second one, which is a little worse. What if it was a two-person job? Now, this is gonna sound stupid, and I literally just thought of it, but it makes sense. So, recently, I've been playing a lot of The Walking Dead, right? And in the very last episode of the first game, there is a scene where Clementine, the main character who is a little girl, has to get into a house, and she runs through this little doggy door. And she slips right through it before a walker can grab her, right? And Lee, the big guy, is oh my god, thank god, now unlock the door for me. So she slips in, unlocks it, and lets him in. And he's just oh, good job. So now,
So what if he had a kid?
Does.
Maybe he had a
doesn't that
kid
make sense?
because essentially, I
What if he had a
mean,
kid helping
if you
him?
asked like a random kid to do that for you, they would totally tattletale. Totally. Even if they were being threatened, they would totally tattletale.
Yeah, that's why it might
What
have
my
been.
theory was that
Yeah,
I actually had two. One, I don't. These aren't as good as yours though, because I literally just thought of them on the spot. But one of them was that I don't know if like lock picking was one of the things back then, but if he was really good at lock picking and they were asleep, I mean, some people are really deep sleepers, so they're not gonna notice that. My other one was that since they're all grocers, essentially in Italian, that he had connections, you know. But I feel like having connections with that many people and like being allowed into their houses, that you would be on someone's suspect list immediately, since you would be all related to all the
yeah.
victims.
That's another thing. Like they checked through like the family records, so it wasn't someone they
Yeah,
knew. Like it wasn't
I
someone they
don't
had
know.
connections with. So it was just like perfectly random. But conveniently, like in his letter, he
Yeah,
said that he
exactly. That which
chose
doesn't
the
make any
people
sense to me because
specifically.
like I don't know if they did him wrong in some sort of way. Like I don't know, that part just bewilders me as they were
Gave
just
him
random
bad
people.
groceries.
Yeah, right.
See, you know what I could be thinking? What I was thinking is, what if he was stalking them,
But for
but
what
like no
reason?
one ever noticed it?
For his own pleasure?
To kill. Or like to. Yeah.
Yeah, to kill
I
someone.
guess. That's
Like the patterns I
there's
I
a
feel like
bunch
noticed
of
that could be
possibilities
something,
here.
you know?
was that majority of them are grocers, right? He attacks like families, well, like husbands and wives, stuff like that, couples. Yeah, Italian people. I don't know why.
Just older
What was
people in
the other
general.
thing that I realized?
Um, he would
Yeah,
use
but
their
it was
ads,
something about the
maybe?
people. I don't remember. Yeah,
They
I
were
think
always
so, something
married,
like that.
most of them with kids. Most of them were, yeah, couples. See, this is the thing, like back then, they didn't have stuff like we have now, like profiling and like the FBI. So I feel like it would have been a lot harder
Course.
to get away
A
with it
lot
now
harder.
than it
But
was.
did he
Yeah,
have a
because
high IQ?
but
Was he a genius like
I don't
Andrew?
think you need one to get
Yeah,
away.
like I mean, I
I don't
just
think
put
you need
gloves
one
on
to
and
get
figure out how to
away
get into your
one
house
like with
and
something like this.
figure out where your axe is. That's pretty simple.
Yeah, and that's basically it. Like Andrew had to like think about everything and like stuff like that, but this guy was just basically like, yeah, I have an
Yeah.
axe and I really like jazz music.
Mhm.
Now play me jazz music or I kill you. You know, that's I never get over that. Every time I think about this story, like when I went to New Orleans, I remember I was walking around. I heard jazz music. It's really popular there. Like that's basically what New Orleans is. And I'm like walking around. I'm just like, wow. Imagine the Axeman like driving through the street, not driving, but like walking through the streets. He's like, "Wow, this music is great. I'm so happy I don't have to kill anyone today." You know, like it's so funny thinking that he made a whole
It's crazy how
city
much
do that.
power he had just to do that.
Yeah, because it was the 1920s. Stuff like this
It's
didn't
so
happen.
peculiar.
You know, so people were like, "Oh my god," yeah. People are like, "Oh my god, I don't want to die. I don't want to die." And honestly, I don't know if you guys know this, but you can go visit the victims' houses because they never. Some of them weren't taken down. Like they're not like sites that you're supposed to go see because people live in them, but the houses are still there
I
the
would
same
not
way
want
they
to
were
live
there in
there.
1920. I don't know. Do you guys
I
watch
used
BuzzFeed
to.
Unsolved? Like, yeah, they made an episode on this where they went to New Orleans and like stood in front of the houses. And if you know anything about them, like Shane is always like, "Come on, Ghost, what are you gonna do?" And Ryan's like, "Shane, stop it," you know. And basically, like when they were there, Shane was like, "Why don't we just go inside?" And he's like, "We're not gonna go inside. Like people died in here." And it's like I believe they even like walked into one of the houses or something like
Yeesh.
that. It's crazy, like how you can just you can see this crime scene 100 years later
Mhm.
because it's
Absolutely
been a
crazy.
100 years now, which is
But yeah,
insane.
that's today's episode. True crime. That one was. I don't want to say
Yeah.
like they're all equally
Whoop
different and
whoop.
interesting.
And disturbing,
Yeah,
but
of course. But something about like this one, it confuses me a lot more than Andrew's.
Because
Like, yeah, we don't know who the killer is, but there's so many unanswered things besides who the killer is. Yeah, because the little details
little
always make the
things
biggest
that
impact.
went
And
unanswered.
so it's crazy.
I tried changing it up. I tried changing it up this week. Like, I went for Andrew Cunanan first because, like, fashion and stuff. And this time I was just like, you know what? I really like this, and it's completely different. So, in 10 weeks, right? Yeah, because it's 10 episodes. It'd be episode 30. Expect yet another confusing
Definitely be
case. It
interesting.
probably won't be confusing, but it'll be
stay
it'll be
tuned.
different. It'll be different than the last two. Ooh.
let's jazz
Bye.
it.
If you want to support us, you should follow our socials. Our website is akapodcast.carrd.co. There you can join our Discord and sign up for our email. Our Instagram is A.K.A. Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at a.k.a. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.